Thanks for tuning back into another episode on Gems Podcast. In the hot seat with me today is Matthew, aka Chef Matt Basile. And here's a bit about Matt. Matt Basile is the founder of the Toronto-based street food brand Fidel Gastro's, author of best-selling cookbooks, Street Food Diaries, and Brunch Life, and was the host of the internationally aired reality TV show Rebel Without a Kitchen, seen on Netflix, the Travel and Escape channel. As a chef and food entrepreneur, Matt has recently reinvented himself in the food space as a creative consultant, product and recipe developer, and content creator. Matt is currently working on his next big project set to launch later this year. No matter what he's working on, in his ethos will always be different in an industry steeped in tradition. So without further ado, please welcome Chef Matt Basile.
You nailed the last name. Nailed it. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure, Chef Matt. And before we dive into what launched you into the entrepreneur industry as a whole, and then you just being a chef and working around all these yummy treats, I want to get to connect with you on a personal level via either.
Heyo.
So I'm going to give you two options here. We could play a rapid fire 10-question game or break the ice up front. Which would you like?
Give me that rapid fire.
Woo! Okay, here we go, y'all. Numero uno, dream car.
A 1970s Mustang convertible.
Okay. 2, favorite food.
Oof, cheeseburgers.
Ooh. 3, favorite color.
Orange.
Okay. 4, if you
or
could
black. Orange or black.
Okay, we can rock with that.
Yeah. Like I'm a big Halloween fan, so.
4, if you could go anywhere around the world, money was no option. Here's the kicker though. You just found out they're no longer flying back to your home destination. So where are you going?
They're never flying back ever again?
Well, as far as right now, there's no flights.
Deal. Hawaii. Get me to a beach. I've had more dreams take place in Hawaii than anywhere else in my life of dreaming. So I feel like I'm supposed to go to Hawaii at some point.
5, name something crazy that you've done in your life.
Oh man, when I was 16, I got my nipple pierced in Austria, and the guy was smoking a cigarette while his dog was in the room and son was playing video games all at the same time. I immediately regretted that decision after I made it.
Oh my gosh. Are they still pierced now?
No. I used to do wrestling in university, so they almost ripped out. And I was like, you know what? I don't need these anymore. And I took them out.
Okay.
Took them out.
6, if you could recreate any significant moment in your life, what would it be and why?
Wow. I'm going to go non-work related because we're going to talk about work. But when I was 18, I'm a big wrestling fan. I was at WrestleMania 18 and I got to see live Hulk Hogan and The Rock. It was one of the most incredible moments in entertainment history as far as I'm concerned. There was like 80,000 people there. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. And I've never experienced anything like that in my life. So I'd love to do that again.
That is super cool. You had me at The Rock because I was like, he is so dreamy.
And this is like when The Rock was just a wrestler and had only done like the Mummy Returns at this point. Like he was not an actor. He was full blown wrestler. But yeah, it was incredible. Whether you didn't even have to like wrestling to really feel what was happening that day. It was wild.
7, if you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, who would it be?
I would love to have dinner with my grandfather. He passed away about 7 or 8 years ago. He's kind of a huge foundation as to who I am in life. So I'd love to have dinner with him again.
8, So, are you a coffee, tea, or smoothie lover?
Definitely coffee. I have no time for tea, and smoothies just get in the way of my cheeseburgers. So coffee.
Woo! Knocking back that Tim Hortons.
Oh yeah, unsponsored.
9. If you could be a fly on the wall, Chef Matt, and listen to any conversation, whose conversation are you eavesdropping in?
Are we talking present day or in history? Like, can I go back in time too, or no?
Either or, you can make it fun.
I would love to be a fly on the wall and listen to Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld mapping out what was going to be the show that they inevitably made, which was Seinfeld. I'd love to know how that first conversation went down. I'm such a big fan of the show and their irreverent humor, so that'd be a lot of fun for me.
Super cool. Now, this is the pass or play question. Number 10. If you play, I ask you one last question. If you pass, the roles are reversed and you could ask me a question. So
Oh
do you
wow!
do you want to pass or play?
I'll play. I'll play. I'll keep it going.
Okay. So 10. Let me make this fun. Oh, okay. This is a good one. You're on a deserted island, right, Matt? Everything
In
is just
Hawaii. In
okay,
Hawaii.
it could be in
Yeah.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
There's a gift shop. Your funds are limited, and you could only buy one item at this gift shop. And here are your options: 2 bananas and 1 mango, your favorite CD, or a piece of clothing. What are you buying?
I ask a lot of questions, so I like it's very circumstantial. Like, did I go to this island naked? Like, do I need the clothes? Because then I would say probably the clothing. But if my clothes are fine, I'm assuming I'm gonna need that food. Like the 2 bananas and mangoes. And especially if it's on an island, so we're in a tropical climate. The banana and the mango is not being shipped in from somewhere else, so it's a local product. So I'm gonna go with the bananas and the mangoes.
Oh, love it. And thank you for
Yeah.
playing rapid fire.
I
Now,
knew this was coming too because I just listened to a few of your podcasts this morning before we did this. So I'm like, I wonder if it's the same questions.
yeah, some are the same. Some I jumble up
Yeah.
because I do everything on the cusp here. So now let's jump into our segment, the meat and potatoes of this conversation. So, what makes Chef Matt? So, walk us through what led you to get started in your entrepreneurship journey, because there had to be a time in your life where you said, you know what, enough is enough. I could do this for myself.
Well, it's funny you say that. I was actually just having this conversation with my cousin, actually my girlfriend's cousin. Because he's getting into his career. He's like in his early 20s, and he's been doing a lot of internships at really big companies. And he was talking about how they're not as like fulfilling as he thought they would be. And I was like, you might want to try going to do an internship at like a smaller company because at a small startup you wear way more hats, you're way more involved, you'll learn more. I think it's real. So the reason why I said this was he was then asking me about like, what made me want to be an entrepreneur at such a young age. And I was 26 when I started my company, and when I decided to quit my job and to pursue a career in food. But it really comes down to this voice you have where you're like, I can't turn it off. And ultimately, I had a very hard time being one person when I got up, a different person when I went to work, and a different person when I came home. I really struggled with that because I felt like my career and my personality needed to have more blending. Like we needed to be kind of closer to being the same thing. And if you've met anyone that's had to work with me over the last 10 years, they'll tell you the Matt you meet in a meeting is the same Matt you see on TV, is the same Matt that's cooking on the line. So, I'm not trying to be something. I'm just kind of existing now. And that's allowed me to have a lot of incredible opportunities. But the separation part about what makes Chef Matt me and not someone else is, this wasn't really my trajectory, like to be a chef. It wasn't I'm self-taught. I did not go to culinary school. I did not work in a restaurant and move up the ranks from dishwasher to prep cook to, garde manger. Like I did not go through the ranking that is traditional when you're in the food business. Because to your earlier point, I was more motivated by being entrepreneurial than I was about being a chef. I just happened to really love food, and to be honest, it was the only thing I knew how to do. It was the only thing. So I was like, I'm pretty like, it's weird when you're saying like I want to be self-employed, but I don't know what else I can do for a living. So I had a couple options, but the only one that I really felt made sense was getting into the food industry. And then you listen to the people that are closest around you, right? And everyone, all of my best friends, especially my best friend, who's still my best friend, and he's so grateful that I ended up doing this for a living, because like we would just be doing barbecues in the summer, and we'd be outside, and you just see how happy it made me to cook for people. And that really, and he was always like you should be doing like this way more than what you are currently doing. And ultimately, like that sentiment fuels every decision I make as an entrepreneur. I really love feeding people. That is the most important kind of like single note of my day is like, okay, like how do we get to feed more people this way? Like, what can I bring to the table, so to speak, very literally and figuratively, that allows me to kind of give people an opportunity to eat really really fun food, and that's really what motivates my day, because every day is different for me, and it's very unconventional for being a professional chef.
That is amazing. And when you left that job, like what were you doing in that past job?
Sure. I was in advertising. I was a writer, a
Oh,
copywriter.
it,
But oh, sorry. Go.
no, because that's interesting. So you were in advertising and now
Mhm.
you're in the food industry. Like that background definitely pairs well with where you are because you definitely know how to market and sell some of the things that you're doing now. Do you think that, being in that industry previously helped you now in the food industry by any chance?
1,000,000%. There's no, everyone will tell you that knows me, because and that's seen my trajectory and my growth. They were like, oh, like it was actually more beneficial to come from an advertising and marketing background than it was from a cooking background, because now you're thinking of it in terms of a food business versus just grunting it out in a kitchen and being a process driven individual. You learn those things. I put myself in kitchens, I learned and acquired those skills, but in my DNA, I was an idea-driven individual who constantly looked to be creative and really push the boundaries of what was kind of normal in our restaurant industry, and that was true day one when I started the company, and it's true 11 years later. And there's been a lot of growth and a lot of changes, and I am notorious for when things are like starting to get comfortable, immediately just changing them on the fly, because I hear. Sorry, one quick second here. Yeah, like I get bored and I need to constantly re-engage with what's going on.
Super, super cool. So, okay, this is so interesting. So, advertising, now the food industry, and then just your love and passion and your best friend. It sounds like your best friend was definitely a conduit to you propelling in this area because he saw something inside of you and he wasn't going to allow it to lie dormant, but he was going to push you and help you accelerate it. And I think that's the beauty of having friends in your circle that can see more than you can see and that will call you to rise up higher in those areas. So when you think about like the creativity that stems from you just wanting to do something new every day, like where do some of those creative recipes come from, especially with you not coming from the quote unquote culinary school background, but you just
For
having
sure.
a drive for it?
Well, I think you actually just answered the question, right? Because I didn't have a culinary school background, I wasn't taught like the classic recipes that every culinary student is taught in that process. Most of them lean into French cuisine. And so it's like when I come up with a recipe, I'm thinking in terms of what do I want to eat and how can I make it like unique and different and fun. So I rarely put those boundaries on myself. And then again, it goes back to like my advertising days of like, how can I develop a product that's memorable, that people can connect with differently, that's still familiar though, and it's not too outside the box that now you've like kind of excluded people and you're like, what is going on here? So, the food industry is a remarkable one, because you really need to operate and think like, super locally, because you could be like, I love to travel. Traveling is how I develop a continuing education as a food entrepreneur. But it's so normal to see something somewhere else, try and bring it back, and it just doesn't work, right? Because it's just not the right timing, and you just have to kind of gradually introduce new ideas, and really see what's going on in the marketplace. And you never want to do exactly what's happening, but you want to do something that's different, but not so different that it scares people away.
So, when you first got into the entrepreneur space in the food industry, what challenges did you face, Chef Matt, and how has it made you a better chef personally as well as professionally?
So my initial goal and my initial business plan was to open up a sandwich shop called Fidel Gastro's. Like that was the idea. So when I was still working, I was developing this business plan because I was like, that's it. I'm going to work on it and I'm going to make it happen. All my friends loved it. Family loved it. That best friend, he was all over it. He's like, this is great. You killed it. Like, so I got a meeting with the bank, and the bank was very fast to shut me down. They were like, you have no experience. You have no equity or assets or money. You're a huge risk, a huge liability. The restaurant industry has a 75% failure rate, if not higher. Like, it's an absolute no for us. We are not investing in you. Have a great day. And I was like, oh, like that sucks. Like, you put a lot of heart and soul into this project, this idea. You want to see it happen. And I just was like prepared to walk away from it. So I like threw the thing aside, went to a party. Coincidentally, that same friend was the one that invited me to this party. We're at this party in an area of Toronto, which is where I'm from. That's the homes are just all open concept. Like they're designed for entertaining, these houses, this part of the city. And so I'm there, and there's a lot of people in the music industry there, the DJ booth, and people are dancing and breakdancing and doing rap battles and taking shots at the bar. Like it was a party, and they were going to order food. They opted to ask me if I would want to cook instead of them ordering in. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'd be honored to, like, totally fine. Grabbed ingredients from the fridge, started whipping things together. Two people were watching me as I was cook. Two became five, five became 10, 10 became 20. Next thing you know, half the party is like surrounding this like island area, watching and asking questions, and everyone's high energy, and people are jumping in, helping out, jumping out. And I was like, maybe that's the business plan. Like maybe if I can't open up a location, I'll just like be experiential and kind of do these kind of moments wherever I can throughout the city. And like that in theory became the business model day one. I revised the entire business plan. I was able to fund it completely on my own. And I just started like trying to make deals with every venue, any event, any market possible to just sell sandwiches off of a table. I didn't know that I needed like business insurance. I didn't know that I needed a license. Like there were so many things I was missing. But what I did have was a really passionate work ethic. I had an okay product. I'm not going to say it was the best product. It was an okay product that got much better over the years. But I had a great idea, and people were really attaching themselves to the idea of what I was creating. And that's where the whole advertising thing really helped out.
Super, super cool. I almost wonder if this friend like did it as a setup because he wanted to like see, oh, let's see what Matt is capable of. And he's like, hey, dude, come to this party or whatnot.
Yeah, right.
And he kind of like, okay, I'm gonna put him on the spot so he could see like why he needs to be doing what he's doing.
He's not that deep of a thinker, unfortunately. He was probably just like, I need a wingman, and Matt's my wingman, you know. But it's really interesting because I'm a big believer in like, you really need to trust your gut, and then listen to the people that are closest around you, because they'll be the first ones to, because they care about you, right? And I think um, that level of care isn't going to come from any other kind of boss or bank manager or anything. Like the people that are closest to your life really genuinely want to see you succeed, but they also don't want to see you fail. And I remember having another friend when we were like, before I decided to make the change in my strategy to be more like pop-up experientially based, I was going to ask my parents to like put their house up as collateral. And my buddy was like, you can't do this. Like, there are some huge red flags in the numbers here. This is another friend. And he was like, you really need to take a step back and fall out of love with this idea the way it's been presented. And had he not said that to me, I probably wouldn't have gone to that party being open to trying, so you can go back in time and relive a million conversations, but they all play a role in how you shape your perspective. And perspective, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful words and tools we can have as entrepreneurs, because what we're saying is there's a lot of things that have shaped vision and our decision making process. And hopefully we've learned enough along the way to make the right decision today. 11 years later, I make decisions very differently than I made 11 years ago. And I wish I was as calm and calculated in my process. But had I been this version of myself 11 years ago, I probably would have been way more afraid of failing and making mistakes. And I think it was that fearlessness that allowed me to just kind of power through moments and succeed inevitably.
Super, super cool. And I'm so glad that you mentioned just listening to your gut, which some people say listen to that intuition, that still small voice, that discernment that is speaking inside of you, because it's never going to steer you down the wrong path. And then also, like, knowing who's in your circle, like, what are your friends doing? What motivates them? What inspires them?
Mhm.
And do you have the same values that they have? Because sometimes our friends that we have in high school are going to be different than our friends in college, than our friends that
Totally.
we have in adulthood. But you also have to make sure that they have the same or similar goals and vision as you, because sometimes some friends could give us really bad advice because sometimes they're deflecting instead of reflecting and seeing the good that we could bring to the forefront. So, Matt, for any young entrepreneur that may have hit a plateau in their career, or for any up and coming entrepreneur that's eager to reach the level of success that you have currently, can you share with them some tips and tricks that would help ignite their flames?
Well, there's no real tricks to doing it, unfortunately, right? You just got to do it. Like, that's the first thing. You need to be not a talker. You need to be a doer. That is the first step to being an entrepreneur. You can't just say you have a great idea. You need to actually put it out there in the world and be prepared to fail at it, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, if you want to quit your job because you're tired of working hard and you're like, I want to be my own boss to call the shots, it's like, I hate to tell you, you're going to be working way harder as an entrepreneur than you ever worked for somebody else. And guess what? Can't always guarantee yourself a paycheck too. So then there's that as well. So you need to be, prepared to not have that stability, right? Not have that, like, no matter what happens, that, yeah, you got to be willing to like ebb and flow with, having a way more unpredictable lifestyle, unpredictable schedule. There was years where I wasn't able to actually do things to my friends and family on a regular basis because I was just always working. And then the last thing is, you need to be prepared for people to always tell you you suck and that you're going to fail. There's always going to be someone that tries to bring you down, which, to your point, right? Like, they don't even have to be friends. They can be just total strangers. I'm about to go to a wedding in June, and I know there's already somebody that's going to be at this wedding that's going to be like asking me a ton of questions about my new project that I'm working on in the hopes to bring it down. And it's like you just have to either ignore or use it to like prove people wrong, right? Like use that as motivation. And I feel like for me personally, I'm constantly motivated by people assuming that I don't know what I'm talking about. Like that's and as the years have developed, there's way less of that. So then you hit that sweet spot of entrepreneurialism, right? Where you now actually people really trust in your opinion. People really want to hear your perspective and they're excited to hear about the next steps you start to take because it's like, well, we saw what they did with very little resources. Imagine now when all of a sudden it's a little less you're a little less bound to restraints and stuff. So that comes over time, and time is your best friend and your worst enemy constantly, but it's going to happen with or without you. So you just need to really learn to, ebb and flow and embrace it and work through your challenges. Try and keep your morals in check along the way, have a overarching vision, and ensure that everything you do goes back to that vision.
Absolutely. And I will definitely add um, this line from Fist Fight, the movie: let your haters be your motivators. To find a trusted mentor that you could bounce ideas off of, a person that is inside of your industry that has insight. And then I would also say a person outside of your industry so they could kind of play devil's advocate and say, oh, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? Um,
1000%.
Oh, another good one, Matt, a SWOT analysis. So know what your strengths are, your weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats, and how do you set yourself apart in the sea of your competitors? Because you don't want to be like everybody else, but you want to remain authentic and true to yourself. And then
Totally.
learn from your failures, because when we learn from our failures, we're able to grow. Celebrate those small wins and those big wins, because that's what's going to give you that momentum to keep on going, because we're all on this up and down roller coaster ride, and it's okay whenever
Hmm.
you hit those down moments, but there's something that needs to be learned during that down moment, just like there's something that needs to be learned at that high moment. So really think about that. And then another thing that I would say, if your dreams don't scare the hell out of you, it's because you're not dreaming too big. Dream big and go after your dreams. I'd rather have progression over perfection, because that could always come later on in life. But you just have to be
True.
like Nike, just do it, start. Because if you never start, you're never going to know what you're capable of.
That really is the kicker. I remember my mom when I was a kid always had a ton of great ideas, but never knew how to see them through, and never, she never did anything really with her career beyond like just working for someone else. But she always had great ideas, and I thought my mom was entrepreneurial, but then realized like, oh wait, no, like once she gets to a certain point, she kind of disappears back into her shell. And that really is the difference between someone who's entrepreneurial or not. Where when you get to those moments, do you push through them and tackle the obstacles, or do you revert backwards and say, you know what, this is kind of intimidating and scary?
Yes, absolutely. And now let's jump into our call to action part of the segment, Matt. What would you like the listeners and viewers to do once they hear your story? Do you want them to take a challenge? Do you want them to follow you on social media, connect on your website? Find a challenge, because we are here to bring education, inspiration, and motivation.
Well, the best thing to do, if you love hearing what you heard today, visit our website, chefmattbasile.com. You'll get everything from recipes to what's happening in our world, in the business world of food. Follow us on Instagram. That's where most of our content lives, building up that TikTok portfolio. So head on over there as well. Gotta get that TikTok portfolio and our YouTube channel, but all of them across the board, Chef Matt Basile. So whether you're finding me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, website, Instagram, all of them, Chef Matt Basile. And again, you'll go there and you'll know that it's an extension of who I am. I'm the same person there as I am here. I'm very passionate about food. I'm very passionate about the business of food. I love big ideas, but I love to have a great time.
Amazing. And thank you so much, Chef Matt, for just coming on here and just shining your light with the audience and just talking about your journey and just overall just having a candid conversation. Listeners and viewers, all of Chef Matt Basile's contact information will be in the show notes. So definitely tap in and plug in with him. Also, stay tuned for his new product that will be launching later on this year. And for those of you who love videos, head on over to YouTube and type at Gems with Genesis Amaris Kemp to see all video content. Make sure you subscribe and share this segment. We're on 40 plus platforms. And last but not least, we are looking for brand sponsors to continue the mission behind Gems, which is to bring educational topics, inspiration, and motivation while we intersect the dots for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Why? Because it takes all of us coming together to make this world a better place. You can find out more information by going to genesisamariskamp.net and tapping on that podcast tab. Until next time, peace, love,
Thank
and lots of
you.
blessings. Woo! And signing out with Chef Matt Basile.